Good evening and welcome. The government has received an application from BioNTech for authorization of the use of its bivalent COVID-19 vaccine that targets the Omicron BA.4 or BA.5 subvariants. The application will be sent to the scientific committees under the Centre for Health Protection. Meanwhile, Hong Kong reported 4,890 new COVID infections today, of which 328 were imported. Christy Khan has more.
After more new Omicron subvariants emerged from different parts of the world, different pharmaceutical companies scrambled to develop new bivalent vaccines. The variants target the COVID-19 Omicron subvariants BA.4 and BA.5. Those bivalent vaccines have been approved for use in Europe, the US, and the Chinese mainland. The Hong Kong SAR government said BioNTech has submitted an application for the authorization of its bivalent vaccine for use in the city. The government added that the data will be reviewed by the Centre for Health Protection's scientific committees. However, there is no clear timeline about when the new vaccine will be imported to the city. Government pandemic advisor David Hui called on Hong Kong residents not to wait for the bivalent vaccine, emphasizing that the current vaccines are effective in reducing the risk of hospitalization and death. He said the two oral antiviral drugs available in Hong Kong are still effective against the new Omicron subvariants. William Choi, president of the Society of Hospital Pharmacists, suggested that the public take their fourth dose of COVID vaccine, citing the possibility of a COVID resurgence this winter. He added that the emergence of new variants, such as the BA.2.75.2, is a main concern.
The reason why we are afraid of these subvariants is because they are more infectious. The other thing, there are some studies show that they have already developed the resistance to the drug treatment which are available in Hong Kong at the moment.
Trey suggested that the government should work more to boost the vaccination rate among young children and the elderly. He noted that some overseas studies show that the risk of developing long COVID could be reduced if the patients had received at least 3 COVID jabs before being infected with the coronavirus. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Chief Secretary for Administration Eric Chan today said the current 0+3 scheme for inbound travellers is, for now, the best arrangement for the city. In his social media post, the Chief Secretary said more people had returned to Hong Kong following the scrapping of hotel quarantine around 2 weeks ago. He acknowledged that previous stringent quarantine measures had reduced the incentive for travellers to fly to the city, but he reiterated that it was vital to strike a balance between maintaining the city's competitiveness and keeping the COVID situation in Hong Kong under control. He insisted that for the time being, the 3-day health monitoring arrangement is the most appropriate one. That's despite the business sector's calls on authorities to scrap the rule. The current rule prevents recent returnees who were issued amber health codes from entering regulated premises such as restaurants and bars on the first 3 days after their arrival. The Chief Executive of the Hospital Authority, Tony Ko, says he is concerned about the possibility of a tough winter flu season on top of COVID variants emerging overseas. This as relaxation of some of the city's social distancing measures may make people more susceptible to influenza than in the last couple of years. The COVID-19 Omicron subvariant BA.2.75 is growing in parts of the world. Together with the rising number of imported cases in the city and the winter flu expected to come into the picture, the SAR government says it must remain cautious. Speaking to TVB News, the Hospital Authority Chief Executive said Hong Kong has so far identified several cases involving the BA.2.75 subvariant. But he added the chance of the subvariant leading to severe cases is similar to that of BA.5 subvariant, which is currently mainstream in the city.
Whether this will impose significant burden to the hospital system also depends on the vaccination status of the people of Hong Kong.
But the hospital chief may be more concerned about the flu jab take-up rate and whether residents have become vulnerable to influenza.
Because of the social distancing measure and the infection control measures we have implemented, we noticed there has not been a flu surge in the last 2 years. This means that the people of Hong Kong may have a lower immunity against influenza. In the last few months, the Southern Hemisphere region, they have just had their winter. We noticed in some countries over there already a significant influenza surge. So we have to be very careful when the coming winter whether this kind of influenza surge will occur in Hong Kong.
Non-emergency services have yet to be fully restored at public hospitals. Ko said that's not entirely because of the pandemic, but rather an exodus of nurse anaesthetists and theatre nurses. He's also hopeful the Greater Bay Area healthcare talents visiting programs will bring in new blood from the mainland and help deal with the manpower shortage just in time. Financial Secretary Paul Chan stressed factors such as the pandemic have caused a dip in the city's Global Financial Centre Index ranking. He added Hong Kong should not think less of itself when it comes to competition against Singapore. Singapore has got ahead of Hong Kong to rank third in the latest Global Financial Centre Index. Writing on his blog, Financial Secretary Paul Chan said Hong Kong's total score has in fact jumped by 10 points. That's a much bigger improvement than the top two ranking countries. Chan explained the pandemic has limited Hong Kong's exchange activities with the world, which may have affected the way financiers think about Hong Kong, causing the drop in its ranking. He added that many have been comparing Hong Kong with Singapore, but stressed the SAR has a lot of strengths. In particular, Hong Kong's overall market capitalization surpassed $42 trillion last year, much higher than Singapore's. A total of 2,500 companies were listed in Hong Kong, but he admits Singapore does stand out in terms of its foreign exchange business. He also wrote that Hong Kong would only face more intense competition as different economic systems would fight for talents and businesses by all means. That's why Hong Kong needs to acknowledge its inadequacies and step up its efforts to bring in more talents and businesses to the city. Chan noted some people who will attend the financial summit on November 2nd think that one day is not quite enough, adding the authorities will host another forum the day after. The mainland reported 1,748 new COVID cases. Inner Mongolia registered 631 infections. Within 11 days, Hohhot city logged a total of 2,800 cases. Some 440 cases were added in Xinjiang, while 55 were reported in Guangdong. The city of Shaoguan also identified cases. On top of the BA.7 variant, some of the cases carried the BA.5.1.7 variant, a first on the mainland. 8 domestic infections were logged in Beijing. Shanghai reported 21 new cases. Mass testing was rolled out in 9 districts, including Pudong and Jiading today. Shanghai Disneyland has immediately suspended some parade performances. Preparations are underway in Beijing today for the 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China that's set to commence on October 16th. That as the 19th Central Committee of the CPC opened its 7th plenary session, President Xi Jinping presented a work report on behalf of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee. He also delivered explanatory remarks on a draft report. Politburo member Wang Huning gave explanatory remarks on a draft amendment to the CPC Constitution. This meeting has also decided on the agenda for the 20th National Congress. In Ireland, 10 people, including 2 teenagers and a young girl, were killed in an explosion at a petrol station in the Irish county of Donegal. Police said it appeared to be a tragic accident. The police said no more casualties were expected from the explosion, which happened shortly after 3 p.m. Friday at the Apple Green petrol station on the outskirts of the village of Creeslow. Those who died were all from the local area. 8 people were being treated in hospital, including one with critical injuries who had to be airlifted to Dublin. Ireland's Prime Minister said the incident was an unspeakable tragedy. British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly extended his sympathies to the victims' families. The explosion leveled the petrol station building, which also housed a shop and a post office. Welcome back. In Germany, attackers cut cables vital for the country's rail network in 2 places Saturday. It caused a 3-hour halt to the rail system in the north of the country. The federal police have launched an investigation. This came after NATO and the European Union recently stressed the need to protect critical infrastructure after acts of sabotage on the Nord Stream gas pipelines. Tracy Furness has more.
Queues rapidly built up at mainline train stations in Germany Saturday morning, including Berlin and Hanover, as departure boards showed many services were delayed. German rail operator Deutsche Bahn later announced that sabotage was behind a breakdown in the train network in northern Germany. This forced both passenger and cargo trains to halt for nearly 3 hours across northwest Germany. Deutsche Bahn said earlier Saturday that no long-distance or regional trains were running in Hamburg, Schleswig-Holstein, Lower Saxony and Bremen. The disruption also affected trains between Berlin and Cologne, as well as international routes between the capital and Amsterdam, while trains from Denmark were not crossing the border into Germany.
Transport
Minister Volker Wissing told a news conference Saturday that it was clear this was a targeted and malicious action, and this was why a criminal investigation was being conducted. But as yet, the background to the crime is not yet known. A German news agency reported that crime scenes were found in a Berlin suburb and in the western state of North Rhine-Westphalia. This, as the European Union just last week in Prague spoke about protecting critical infrastructure within Europe. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
In Thailand today, grieving families gathered at a Buddhist temple to pray and make offerings to their deceased children. 36 people were killed, 24 of them preschoolers, when a former police officer went on a rampage at their daycare center on Thursday. The mourning relatives gathered at Rat Samakhi Temple, one of 3 temples where the bodies of the victims will be placed for funeral rites and cremation on Tuesday. Family members sat in front of the tiny coffins while Buddhist monks chanted prayers. Later, they placed trays of food, milk and toys outside the temple walls as offerings to the dead. The mourning ceremony will continue for 3 days. Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha is expected to attend an evening prayer at one of the temples today. The mass killing is the nation's deadliest. After the rampage at the daycare center, the attacker went home and killed his wife and son before killing himself. Numerous provinces in China are affected by a cold wave, recording a drastic decrease in temperature in some regions. The cold wave swept the north and northeast parts of China, bringing moderate snow and rain to some regions. The National Meteorological Center said the temperature in some areas of Liaoning and Jilin provinces will fall to around 12 degrees Celsius. And the forecaster added that the cold wave would move southward and affect southern regions, including Guangdong and Fujian. Separately, Jiuzhai Valley National Park in Sichuan already saw early snowfall over the weekend. Back here at home, the government plans to resume lands in the Lam-Tay area in Chunmun in 2025. While the area is expected to provide 20,000 public homes, some affected residents and businesses say the government does not have plans to accommodate them. Authorities are planning to resume 30 hectares of land on Sanhing Road and Hongpo Road. Some 22,000 units are expected to be built, which could house 60,000 residents by 2030 at the earliest. But a village representative estimates half of the village, involving 80 households, will be affected. The representative says so far the government has not set out any concrete plans for compensation. Some say authorities haven't even reached out to the villager. That's the news. Thanks for watching.